Oh, just wait till I get that screwy wabbit and that screwball duck.
Wabbit season! Duck season!
Wabbit season!
Duck season!
Wabbit season!
Duck season! Duck season!
Wabbit season!
Duck season!
Wabbit season!
Duck season!
Wabbit season!
Duck season!
Wabbit season!
Duck season!
Hello, and greetings, lovely person, from RPGmodsFan. This video is part 5 of my walkthrough and review of the 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons adventure, Waterdeep Dragon Heist. In order not to repeat myself too much, I would highly recommend watching my parts 1 to 4 videos before watching this video. In this video, I will be going over the adventure book's 4th chapter titled Dragon Season. By this point in the adventure, the player characters should be at 4th or 5th level. The Waterdeep Dragon Heist story pretty much concludes in this chapter.
I am the evil Dungeon Master, and my thrall, RPGmodsFan, will be discussing the adventure itself, and this video will contain spoilers. Unless you are a Dungeon Master who will be running this adventure for their players, or are a player who already played through this adventure and are watching this video for nostalgia purposes, I would suggest not to watch the rest of this video. Excuse me while I go and TPK my group of players.
Before I continue, I just want to add some things that I should have in my parts 1 and 3 videos. As a Dungeon Master, I have my players create backup characters along with their main characters. When the Waterdeep Dragon Heist adventure starts in the Yawning Portal, I would also have the backup characters present there, and give a chance for the players to play them as well as their main ones during the Tavern Brawl and the Troll fight. In my Parts 3 video, I suggested to have Durnan send the main characters a housewarming gift. As a DM, I would have Durnan hire the backup characters to deliver the skull of the troll that was defeated at the Yawning Portal to the main characters at their Trollskull Manor residence as a housewarming gift. For this delivery quest, I would have the players play their backup characters. As a DM, I would also inject other opportunities for the main characters to interact with the backup characters. I do this in order to make a more smooth transition to a backup character if and when the need arises. I also do this in hopes of fostering an in-game bond between the main and backup characters. However, Waterdeep Dragon Heist is not a deadly adventure if the player characters are smart and do not do too many stupid things. So, I hope you like these suggestions.
Previously on Waterdeep Dragon Heist, the famous explorer, author, and raconteur Volothump Gedram gives our band of fearless adventurers a quest to find and rescue his kidnapped friend, Floon Blagmar. In a case of mistaken identity, Floon was first kidnapped by the Zentarum, then again by the Zenithar Guild. During their quest, they also rescue Lord Rainier Neverember. Volo awards our adventurers with the Trollskull Manor estate, located in the North Ward. The adventurers settle into their new home and meet their neighbors. Rescuing Rainier has made them known in Waterdeep, and has brought them the attention of various factions. These factions then try to persuade the adventurers to join them. One early morning, the player characters hear the roar of an explosion, their windows rattle, followed by the screams of city folk, all coming from Trollskull Alley. A fireball has detonated in the street, claiming the lives of 11 people. This prompts an investigation by our merry band of adventurers, where they discover the explosion was caused by a Nimblewright that had a necklace of fireballs. The Nimblewright's owner was Lady Yalla Growlhorn, and its mission was to obtain the Stone of Galore. The investigation and events culminate into a bloody confrontation at the Growlhorn's noble estate. However, the Nimblewright has escaped the estate with the stone and was instructed with one last mission. It is now up to our band of fearless adventurers to find the Nimblewright and the Stone of Galore.
At this point in the adventure, the weather turns harsh. If the adventure is being run in the spring season, then the following weather effects are in play. Heavy rain falls from noon until midnight. From midnight until noon, the city is engulfed in a thick fog. If the adventure is being run in the summer season, then there will be a heat wave. If it is autumn, the city will be very windy. If it is winter, the weather will be extremely cold and there will be a blizzard raging. Where the Nimblewright delivers the Stone of Galore depends on the season/main villain of the adventure. When the player characters finally find the Nimblewright, it is hiding under a pile of uncollected garbage in an alley. With nowhere to go and no other purpose, it fights until it is destroyed. On the Nimblewright, the player characters will find a folded-up map marking where it delivered the stone. If Zenithar is the main villain, the Nimblewright delivered the Stone of Galore to Grinda Garloth in the Mistshore neighborhood of the Dock Ward. Grinda is a mage. If the Castle Lanterns are the villains, the Nimblewrights delivered the stone to the Castle Lantern family mausoleum in the City of the Dead. If Jarlaxle is the villain, the stone was delivered to Fenris Stormcastle, who lives in an alley in the Trades Ward. Fenris works as a lamplighter and is a retired brigand. If Manchun is the villain, the stone was delivered to a dragonborn butcher named Thrakus in the Field Ward, where he has a butcher shop. The adventure book details out 10 encounters. For each season, 8 encounters comprise the player character's hunt for the Stone of Galore and of the Vault of the Dragons. They form a chain, and their order depends on the chosen season/villain. This was done to make this adventure replayable. Although the encounters themselves are not complex, running them will be a challenge because of having to constantly flip back and forth as the players progress. The first link in the encounter chain takes place where the Nimblewrights left the stone. The next 5 links are either the player characters hunting for or chasing after the stone. Generally, by the 6th link, the player characters finally get possession of the stone. The 7th link in the encounter chain is either the villain's or the player character's last chance to get the stone. Basically, the Stone of Galore keeps getting passed on from one encounter to the next like a rugby ball or like an American football. By attuning to the stone, a character will learn where the vaults of the dragons lie, and this will be the last encounter in the chain. The adventure book does state, quote, "Do not feel bound by an encounter chain. Let the character's decisions and actions drive the story. You can change the order in which encounters happen. Remove encounters you do not need or create new encounters." I will now be briefly discussing each encounter chain. For each chain, I should do a more detailed video, which would be quite a task. Anyway, in order to understand these encounters more easily, I put together tables for each encounter, outlining monsters and NPCs encountered, special plot points, where the stone is, and other pertinent information. For those who are interested, I am making this Dungeon Master's Aid available for my patrons on Patreon. Please note that this is meant as a DM aid only and does not contain maps or art. Basically, if you do not have a copy of Waterdeep Dragon Heist, this aid will seem like gibberish. I will now discuss the Spring Encounter chain. The Stone of Galore was originally snatched from Xanathar. The Eye Tyrant wants it back. It will send its minions and monsters to do its dirty work. Lady Yala Growlon's Nimblewright delivers the Stone of Galore to Grinda Garloth, who lives in the Mist Shore neighborhood of the Dock Ward. Grinda is a mage and a mad treasure hunter, and she has worked for Xanathar in the past. She lives in the Dock Ward at building numbered D2. She got greedy and decided to keep the stone for herself instead of handing it over to the Xanathar Guild. To take the stone by force, the Xanathar Guild sent 4 human bandits and a Maro who was swimming in the waters. They are led by Noska Urgray, a dwarf. After the player characters defeat these attackers, they learn that Grinda told her rat familiar to hide the stone in her family's crypt in the City of the Dead. From this point on, the characters are followed by a gazer, through whose eyes Xanathar can see. The gazer stays out of any fights and tries to remain unseen. Lossar Merklov, a male halfling necromancer, and his 2 grave robbers have already raided the Garloth family mausoleum, killed the rat, and taken away the stone. However, a clue was left behind that will lead the characters to an old windmill in the southern ward. As the player characters emerge from the mausoleum, 5 Durgar, who are members of the Xanathar Guild, attack them. They believe the characters have the stone. At the old windmill, Lossar's 2 grave robbers can be easily compelled to inform the characters that Lossar has the stone and that he can be found in a cellar complex that is in the trades ward. When the player characters arrive, they find Lossar menaced by 3 Kanku working for the Xanathar Guild. Prior to the characters' arrival, a Kanku has already gotten the stone from Lossar and has fled the scene. So, the chase begins. The chase through the streets happens during Trolltide, a springtime holiday that is very similar to Halloween's Trick or Treat. Children are running around wearing troll masks. The Kanku with the stone then ducks into an old tower. When the player characters obtain the stone from the Kanku, they are then attacked by 3 gazers. As the player characters are moving through an alley, the Xanathar Guild makes one last attempt to get the stone by sending a force of 8 kobolds dressed as children, 1 intellect devourer, and 1 bugbear named Morga, who is leading this force. By attuning to the stone, a character will learn that the Vault of the Dragons lies beneath the Pink Flumph Theatre in the castle ward. As Waterdeep contends with the sweltering summer heat, the castle lanterns send disciples of their Asmodeus-worshipping cult to seize the Stone of Galore. The Nimblewright delivers the Stone of Galore to the Castle Lantern family mausoleum in the City of the Dead. 5 cultists entered and 2 left. The ones who left have the stone and have taken it to an old windmill in the southern ward, which is their residence. When the player characters arrive at the mausoleum, they will find 2 dead cultist bodies. The 3rd body was left for dead. This survivor reveals that these cultists were betrayed by 2 of their own, and reveals the location of the old windmill. 3 spined devils arrive at the same time as the player characters arrive at the old windmill. Just as the characters break into the cultist's apartment, the spined devils swoop in, snatch the stone, and then flee, leading to a rooftop chase between the adventurers and the spined devils. The spined devils then duck into an alley where a hire coach is waiting in the middle of it. The spine devils hand off the stone to the hire coach's passenger, Willifort Crowell. Willifort works as the Castle Lantern's valet and is a doppelganger taking the form of an elderly thiefling. The spined devils and 3 imps will attack the player characters as they enter the alley, giving time for the hire coach to flee the scene. As the hire coach flees, a street chase ensues, but a crowd cuts off the hire coach's path. Hence, Willifort leaps out and tries to lose himself in the crowd. In the confusion, street urchins are able to snatch the stone, most likely by pickpocketing Willifort, and disappear into the sewers. The characters catch up to the urchins in their cellar hideouts and are able to obtain the stone. When the characters emerge from the sewers, they are arrested by the City Watch for disturbing the peace, as well as any other crimes they have committed, and are taken into custody at the Dock Ward Courthouse. Willifort will try to get the stone back. At the conclusion of events at the courthouse, the characters again have possession of the stone. By attuning to the stone, a character will learn that the Vault of the Dragons lies beneath an old tower in the Sea Ward. The tower belongs to a young noblewoman named Esveli Rosnar. When committing crimes, she dons on the costume of the Black Viper. The Black Viper was a notorious burglar, pickpocket, mugger, and assassin over a century ago. Esveli has recently adopted the Black Viper's persona to lead a secret life of crime. To me, for some reason, the Black Viper is one of the more memorable characters of the adventure. Maybe because she reminds me of the Queen of Swords character. I love that show and wish it had more than just one season. Thus, I would have the player characters meet her earlier in the adventure, such as during the course of a faction mission. Deception and misdirection are Jarlaxle's forte, and he likes to trick his rivals into working for him. In the Autumn Chain, he tries to steer the characters toward the Stone of Galore and lets them think they are always one step ahead. Drow player characters who are members of the Brigandairth might find their loyalty to the party put to the test. The Nimblerite delivers the Stone of Galore to Fenris Stormcastle, who is a lamplighter and a criminal. To make extra income, he thinks he is working as a spy for the city of Luskan, but in reality he is working for the Brigandairth. He lives in an alley in the Trades Ward. Fenris has hidden the stone on the top floor of an old tower in the Dock Ward before he was arrested and taken to the Castle Ward Courthouse. When the characters enter Fenris's home, they will find it ransacked. It was ransacked by Durgar while searching for the stone. The Durgar work for the Xanathar Guild and lair in a cellar complex in the Southern Ward. Disguised as the Open Lord Laurel Silverhand, Jarlaxle Bainray shows up and parleys with the player characters. Jarlaxle tries to convince the characters to look for the stone for him, or in this case, should I say her. Anyway, Jarlaxle will suggest to look for the stone at a Xanathar Guild cellar complex in the Southern Ward. After battling various denizens at the cellar complex, the player characters find a fake stone. It is a clever imitation made by Fenris. The player characters are then supposed to take the fake stone to the Seven Masks Theater in the Dock Ward. There they meet Rung Quan Mystère, who claims to be a member of the Lord's Alliance and works for Laurel Silverhand. In reality, Rung Quan is, again, Jarlaxle in disguise. Upon examining the stone, Ronquan/Jarlaxle will know it is fake. He informs the characters that Fenris has been arrested and that they should go to the Castle Ward courthouse next to interrogate Fenris. Fenris refuses to divulge the stone's location until he is released and granted immunity for all his past crimes. By one means or another, the characters learn that Fenris has hidden the stone in the old tower in the dock ward. 3 stealthy drow will be tailing the characters to the old tower. They will use their levitate ability to quickly get to the top floor, take the stone, and flee across the rooftops in the dock ward. Leading to a rooftop chase between the characters and the drow. The drow then drop down to the street level at the Mist Shore section of the dock ward. The drow's means of escape is a mechanical dragon turtle named Big Belchy. During the scuffle, the stone is supposed to drop down into the deep waters of the harbor. Thus, the characters will need to find a way of retrieving it. Once they get the stone, and a character attunes to it, that character will learn that the Vault of the Dragons lies beneath a windmill that was converted into a residence at the Sea Ward. At the converted windmill, they meet Kalain, a female half-elf bard. She is an eccentric painter and artist. Before he was ousted, she was one of Lord Daggalt Neverember's mistresses, and she is now jaded. The cold of winter will not stop Manchun and his Zents from pursuing the stone. They will even be reckless in their pursuit. The Nimblewright delivers the Stone of Galore to Thrakus, a male dragonborn. Thrakus converted an old fire-scorched windmill into a butcher's shop. He has a lucrative side business. The Manchun faction of the Centaurum pay Thrakus to chop up people they kill, and he then sells the meat on the sly. He hid the stone in a recent meat delivery to Cuttle's Meat Pies, located in an alley in the Trades Ward. The gruesome meat was delivered by Justio Rask, a member of the Guild of Butchers. He was paid extra coin to see it delivered quickly and quietly. The alley not only has Cuttle's Meat Pies shop, but also a safe house for the Manchun Zentarum. One of these Zents takes the stone from the meat's delivery and hands it to another Zent named Vivette Blackwater, who quickly flees onto the rooftops. But before the adventurers can give chase, they have to contend with 5 bugbears sent by the Zenithar Guild to find and rescue Ott Steeltoes, a dwarf who was being held captive by the Zents. The adventurers then chase Vivette Blackwater on the icy and dangerous rooftops. Vivette then drops down and ducks into the Brisen Bright Theatre in the Trades Ward. The play currently being performed is called Blood Wedding. This dark drama is awfully similar to the Ravenloft love triangle story between Count Strahd von Zorovich and his younger brother Sergei and Tatiana, the girl they both are in love with. Before the characters arrive and can witness the exchange, Vivette hands off the stone to Agorn Foucault, a male human bard and a member of the Zentarum. His lady companion at the play is Amath Sursant, a female human priestess of Bane. When the adventurers spot Vivette in the darkened theater, she springs from her chair and flees out the nearest door. She then leads her pursuers on a merry chase through the snow-covered streets of the Trades Ward. One way or another, the characters learn that Aegorn Foucault has the stone and is on his way to Mistshore in the Dock Ward. However, unbeknownst to the adventurers, Aegorn handed the stone to his lady friend Amath Sursant. Both hired a coach. At the castle ward, he dropped off Amath at an old tower called Yellowspire, where she lives, before heading off to the Dock Ward. The characters can catch up to Aegorn at Mistshore at his mother's dilapidated home. When he is captured and questioned, Aegorn reveals that he made one stop on his way and that he dropped off a lady friend who has the stone at her place. At the old tower, also known as Yellowspire, the adventurers confront Amath and her 4 acolytes of Bane. Right when the adventurers wrest the stone from Amath, Manchun's simulacrum shows up and another battle ensues. By attuning to the stone, a character will learn that the Vault of the Dragons lies beneath the Brandeth family mausoleum in the City of the Dead. By the way, Lord Rainier Neverember's mother's maiden name is Brandeth. As a dungeon master, I would have the encounter chain run in one session. If time is running out, then just narrate the rest of the chain, and have the player characters start at the last encounter of the chain at the beginning of the next session. Although the DM is supposed to have only one main villain, I still would have the other villains also looking for the stone. For instance, if Manchun is the main villain, I still would have Xanathar send a gazer to follow the characters. I would have the Castle Lanterns send invisible imps to follow them. For Jarlaxle, I would have him send 2 drow to tail the characters. When the characters enter and then are leaving the Vault of the Dragons, I would have all villains sending their forces in, and then all hell breaks loose. This is only a suggestion, and will be very hard to keep track of and implement. Anyway, I am jumping ahead of myself. Regardless of where the vault is located, its adamantine doors are sealed shut. Due to its protections and special long-ago construction by the dwarves, teleporting into and out of the vault is impossible. Likewise, communication spells, scrying, etc. will be impossible. In order to open the doors to the Vault of the Dragons, 3 keys are needed. The Dungeon Master can determine each key or just roll for it randomly. The doors cannot be damaged or forced open. The 3 huge columns in the middle of chamber numbered V2 support crumbling bridges that are 60 feet or 18 meters above. Untouched for ages, within dust-filled secret room V5 is a small fortune. A secret trapdoor in chamber V7 hides a descending spiral staircase that leads down and into the treasure vault. Inside the vault is, of course, the embezzled 500,000 gold pieces piled in a heap in one of the chamber's alcoves. When the adventurers enter the vault, they will be greeted by an aged dwarf clutching a staff who calls himself Barak Clanghammer. Barak is really the dwarf form of the adult gold dragon named Aranax. He guards the gold for the embezzler and ousted Lord Dagult Neverember. The staff Barak holds is the dragon staff of Agharon. For even high-level characters, a gold dragon or a dwarf wielding this staff will be extremely difficult to defeat in combat. Thus, the adventurers will need to parley with Aranax and convince him to depart or allow the gold to be removed. The adventurers can claim they came on Neverember's behalf. This argument is more likely to succeed if Rainier Neverember, Dagult's son, is with the party. The adventurers can try to convince the noble dragon that Dagult Neverember embezzled the gold from the people of Waterdeep, and that it would be fair and just to see the coin safely returned to its rightful owners. This argument is more likely to succeed if Vejra Safar, the Blackstaff, and/or Laurel Silverhand are with the party. As the player characters leave the vault, with or without the gold, they are confronted by a hostile force sent by the main villain in the adventure. If Zenithar is the main villain, it will send a force of bugbears and a gazer. If the castle lanterns are the villains, they will send a force of cultists. If Jarlaxle Bainray is the villain, he arrives along with 3 drow. If Manchun is the main villain, he sends his simulacrum along with several Santarum thugs. If the gold is given back to the city of Waterdeep, the Open Lord Laurel Silverhand will visit the player characters a few days later. She will award them with 50,000 gold pieces in total. Even that much coin attracts unwanted attention. Sometime later, several people will beg for loans or donations from them. Some beggars include Floon Blagmore, Volothump Gedrom, Davil Starsong, and others. Thus concludes Waterdeep Dragon Heist. The only thing left to cover is the villain's layers, which are outlined in chapters 5 through 8. One of the things that annoys me about the Waterdeep Dragon Heist book is the often missing article words such as the, a, and an. This was probably done to reduce the book down by a few pages. However, doing so makes the adventure book seem like it was written by someone whose English was their second language. Anyway, despite that, I personally love Waterdeep Dragon Heist. So many D&D adventures and modules have the player characters starting in and adventuring around a small town or village. Having an adventure take place in a city is a refreshing change of pace. Thank you for watching. Hope this video has been informative and entertaining. Please subscribe, like, share, and comment. I do like feedback. Till next time, this is RPGmodsFan saying cheers, have a good day, and goodbye.
What's it gonna take? Have another deep breath. Think before you say. Think before you say. Think before you say. I'll play the fool. You sit and wait. Awkward conversation. When's it gonna change? How has your day been? What else can I say? What else can I say? How else can I say? Said, life Let's sing a song full of hope, full of pain. Why don't you sing along, my friend? For it's our last refrain. Forever young, ever strong, ever brave. Memories like this never end. No, they don't fade away. So when I'm gone, oh, when I'm gone, I'll be right there, close to the sun. Keep holding on, keep holding on. And I'll be right there, close to the sun, close to the sun. Close to the sun. Here's to the ones who let shine through the rain, the ones who stood for something more. We won't forget your names. The tide is high, say goodbye, we're setting sail. And all those midnight secrets told, we'll take them to the grave. So when I'm gone, oh, when I'm gone, I'll be right there, close to the sun. Keep holding on, keep holding on. And I'll be right there, close to the sun, close to the sun. Close to the sun. So when I'm gone, oh, when I'm gone, I'll be right there, close to the sun. Keep holding on, keep holding on. And I'll be right there, close to the sun, close to the sun.